Galloway's Tech Talk at 3. Microsoft Soundscape, lighting up the world with sound.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Galloway's Tech Talk at 3. Today's a really exciting session because we have got Stephen and Fraser from Microsoft Soundscape, where we will be learning about what Soundscape is and the new features that we can start using. So over to you, Stephen and Fraser, and thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having us. It's honestly a pleasure to be here today. So my name is Stephen Abrams, and I'm with my colleague Fraser Carr, and the pair of us work in a Soundscape team, which is actually quite a small team. And one of our founding members is called Amos Miller, and he is blind, and he sort of inspired the start of Soundscape all these years ago. As for myself and Fraser, we are the testers. We test this thing, and we've spent, in fact, a little fun fact, Soundscape, I think, actually was released to the App Store 4 years ago, almost to the day, I think. But there were several years before that, maybe three or 4 years before that, where we were doing all kinds of research and planning and ideas and all sorts of things. And in those early days, our colleague Jarnell, he called it a quest. And the quest, or vision, as some people might call it, was to empower people with sight loss to be mobile and independent by using an inclusive design that provides a better experience for everyone. And what they did all these years ago is we started off in a relationship between Microsoft and Guide Dogs, and that grew into collaboration with a bunch of other non-profit organizations and O&M schools, partners in transportation, retail, and a load of people across Microsoft themselves. And that collaboration sort of led to Microsoft Soundscape today. And it's probably worth mentioning that before Soundscape became an app, we did a lot of user studies, a lot of testing with users. And I think, Fraser, you might remember this more than I did, but a lot of the testing was all around how people felt when they were giving a task to go on a journey. And we were measuring things like their confidence, their anxiety levels, or how aware of their surroundings they were, and also how much cognitive effort and thinking it might have required them. And we found in those early days that, I think, was it fair to say, Fraser, that anxiety was quite high? People weren't that confident. They weren't necessarily aware of what was around them. And also there was a huge cognitive effort, wasn't there? In terms of what people had to do and think about doing a simple task like navigating, getting from A to B. And so our quest was to make that easier. And we wanted to move away from a prescriptive style of navigation that you see with Google Maps today to something which was a bit more descriptive. We wanted to increase awareness of what was around you in your environment. And we wanted to give people control, and we wanted to decrease anxiety and ultimately increase confidence. And I've put up an image on the screen showing a whole bunch of people, as you can imagine today, with their phones, looking down at their phones. And as you see, as they do today, and we call that heads down experience, which we don't think is a good thing, because when people are heads down, they're not looking up, they're just immersed in their phone. But with Soundscape, we wanted that to become a heads up experience. We wanted people to start listening. We wanted them to enjoy what was around them. And that was kind of our motivation for what we wanted Soundscape to be. So without wasting too much time, I'm going to ask Fraser the question, what is Soundscape? And I'll let him explain what it is.
Yeah, so after this 4 years on the App Store and 5+ years of research before that, Soundscape now it's an app, and it's a map and a navigation tool. So it uses spatial audio technology to place sounds around you in 3 dimensions. So you hear the map rather than reading it. So for example, say you're walking down the road and Starbucks is on your left, you hear it from your left. If you turn around, you'd hear it from your right. And this really helps to kind of keep the cognitive load down. Instead of hearing Starbucks on your left or Starbucks at 9 o'clock, you just hear the word Starbucks. You don't need to think about where it is. You don't need to, kind of helps to build that model in your mind. In doing so, it really, as Steve said, helps keep the cognitive load down while you're kind of doing what's a simple task, walking down the road. You don't need all this extra information kind of fighting for your awareness. So sort of how does this actually work? We've got a diagram up on the screen here, which kind of shows the different components of what makes Soundscape work. On the very right of this screen, we've got OpenStreetMaps and Bing. So OpenStreetMaps is an open source mapping tool that anybody can update. So if something's missing, an O&M instructor or just any member of the public can go in and add a shop that didn't have a name, for example. We also use Bing Maps, which is just your standard online map. This one happens to be owned by Microsoft. Users can't go in and edit it, but they can suggest changes. But it's a locked environment, if that makes sense. And then you've got the services layer, which kind of takes in that data from the maps and processes it into a form that the app can read. So in the middle of the diagram, we have the iPhone app. What this does is turns this data into audio, outputs the audio to the audio delivery devices, which is just that's a fancy way of saying headphones and speakers. And then on the very left of the diagram, we've got the spatial audios. This is what you as the Soundscape user actually experiences. This is the call out that's from your left or from your right, depending on where something is relative to you. So that's kind of how the background of how the technology works. But yeah, what does this actually mean? Steve, do you want to go over what you might see on your first walk?
So we've kind of breezed through what it is really. I mean, at the end of the day, if you were to go to the App Store today and download Soundscape and you didn't do anything else, all you did was load the app and then go for a walk around your town and just listen. As you're walking through your high street or wherever it is you may be, you'll just hear Soundscape calling stuff out to you. Okay, it will call it out the bank, which may be on your left, and you'll hear it coming out of your left. If you're using headphones, which I know lots of blind and low visual people don't necessarily want to use, if you were using a headset, you would hear things coming out of your left ear. If that bank is on your left, that's where you'll hear it. And as you keep walking, you'll hear all sorts of things in your environment that you probably never even knew was there. Okay, I've tested this with my family, and I've been walking around with my wife and 2 kids, and I basically hear a call out for bike parking. And I say, oh, there's a bike park somewhere around here. And everyone turns around and says, where? And I say, it's over there to the right, because that's where I've heard it from. And lo and behold, there it is. So sometimes I get this, it's almost like a superpower. I get to hear about things that are around me before even my family know or see them. And that's the most basic Soundscape experience. That's what we call just the ambient experience. You're just walking through the town, listening. And everything you hear is what we call an automatic call out. And also, you won't just hear places, but you'll hear a call out for roads that you are approaching. Importantly, you'll hear the call out will say you're approaching an intersection between 2 or more roads, and it will give you the name of the road. It will tell you which direction the roads are going. And if it's going left, it'll tell you it's going left. If it's going right, you'll hear it going right. If it's continuing ahead, it will come out in front of you. You'll hear crossings. You'll hear all bus stops, all sorts of things suddenly light up your world, so to speak. So it's, even in its most basic experience, Soundscape is powerful. We've also added a few buttons on the app itself. So if you want a little bit more control and you want to actually do things like, well, where am I? There's a button called My Location. You press that button, it will tell you where you are. It will say you're walking along High Street in Peterborough. I don't know, it'll say wherever it is you are and what's nearby. But there's another button, which is called Around Me, which will tell you four things. One thing in front of you, something to the right, something behind, something to the left. That kind of just helps with orientation. So you could be walking down the high street, you might press Around Me and you'll still know that that church is still ahead of you. But something else might be to your right and left. So that's also a very useful button. And there's also another button called Ahead of Me. You press that and it will tell you 5 things that are in front of you to look forward to, but they're ahead of you. Okay, so you've got all this control just using Soundscape in the most basic way. The next slide is, I'm going to talk about what is known as an audio beacon. And a lot of people don't get this straight off the bat, but it is arguably one of the most powerful features that Soundscape has. We started off by saying that Soundscape is a 3D audio map to be used with navigation. And this is the way we do navigation. Now with Google Maps, for example, you'll have what is known as turn-by-turn navigation. So if you pick a destination, you choose, say you're in London, you want to go to Big Ben, you would search for Big Ben and set your directions. Google will give you turn-by-turn directions to get there. It will tell you when you need to turn left and tell you when you need to turn right and so on. We don't do that, and I can explain why. We use something called an audio beacon. So when you search for Big Ben in Soundscape, what you'll hear is a sound, and this sound is coming from wherever Big Ben is. So if you're facing, if Big Ben's to your right, you'll hear this sound literally coming from your right ear. So if you turn towards it, the beacon will then change in sound. You'll get like a different tone, and that different tone indicates you are now facing Big Ben. And the idea is that with the beacon, you kind of follow that beacon sound to wherever it is. And Soundscape will say to you, Big Ben, 55 meters away. Or if you're even further away, it might say Big Ben, 500 meters away. And you keep walking towards this beacon sound. And that sound will always be around you in 3 dimensions. Now, if you haven't got a headset, you can use your phone like a pointing device. So you could literally point your, hold your phone in your hand, point it, turn. And when you're pointing it towards Big Ben, you'll hear the beacon sound change again. So you now know just by pointing your phone, where is that beacon coming from? And you just follow that beacon. The idea is that you have complete control over how you get to Big Ben. You're not being told to go left or right, because I tell you what, these navigation apps rely on GPS. And I'm assuming you guys know what GPS is, but that basically GPS is what gives you your location. It's what phones use to get a location. And if GPS is not accurate, and you're using Google Maps or Bing Maps or any other map, and it's telling you to turn left or right, but your phone doesn't accurately know where you are, it could make you turn left into the wrong road and so on and so forth. So we took our user safety as one of the most important things. And so we use this beacon concept. And when you use it and you get used to it, it is incredibly powerful and it does work. Fraser and I in our testing have walked couple of miles from like Paddington Station across Hyde Park, all the way to a cafe that we always go to when we head towards South Kensington in London. Okay, purely using the beacon. And every time we've done it, we've gone a slightly different direction, but we always get to our final destination because that beacon is like pulling us towards our brunch, which we're desperately looking forward to. And it always works. So the next slide is, I'm going to pass over to Fraser, and it talks a little bit about configuring your listening experience. So Fraser, explain a little bit what we do here.
Yes, I know we discussed this a little bit at the start, but kind of going back to the headphones, a question we get a lot is, do I need to wear headphones when I use Soundscape? Obviously, a lot of people don't want to have something in their ear. I know we've kind of touched upon there's bone conduction and things like that. So basically, in short, you don't need to use headphones. You don't have to. Kind of got a few different levels of experience, if you like. The most simple configuration is just simply using the phone speaker. When you're doing this, you don't get the spatial audio technology, because for that you need essentially a speaker next to each ear to be able to make the sound like it's coming from the left or to the right. When you just use the phone speaker, things like the audio beacon, you can hold the phone in front of you and turn it. And for example, say Big Ben was to your left and you turned the phone to your left, you'd start to hear the ping that says, the way your phone is pointing now is the direction to it. And you still get all the call outs that tell you what is around you. So you'll hear Starbucks, you just wouldn't necessarily know if it was left or right. But you still get that ambient awareness of the places that are around you. And then kind of the next level is to have some kind of stereo headset. So this could be the little earbuds that just come with your iPhone, could be the aftershocks that we mentioned, audio sunglasses like the Bose frames. Well, I'll get onto those a bit more in a moment. And these give you the spatial audio that we're talking about. So you'll be able to hear if it's left or right. If you're stationary, we don't know which way you're facing. If your phone's in your pockets, you may still need to get it out and use it as a pointer. But on the whole, when you're moving, these kind of give that 3D sound that we keep talking about. And then the next level up, which is kind of technology that's really come on in the last couple of years and gives the kind of the most hands-free experience for Soundscape, is headphones which have head tracking sensors built in. So what this means is that all this spatial audio we keep talking about is based on the direction that you're actually looking in. So sounds are as accurate as they possibly can be. If Starbucks is being called out and it's on your left, as you turn to face it, we can move the sound around to the front of you as you turn. Again, these headphones, they can be non-occluding or some are occluding. So for example, the AirPods Pro that we talked about earlier, they do sit in your ear and some people aren't comfortable with the amount of noise that they block. Other options are like the Bose frames headset. The early models of them, I think the Alto and Rondo, they support this head tracking and are supported in Soundscape. But one of the most exciting ones we think at the moment, they released a couple of weeks ago, is the Sony Link Buds. So these are quite innovative in the way that they sit in your ear, but they have an open design. So there's an image on the screen. Essentially, if you imagine a donut with a hole in the middle, it's almost like that. So there's actually a physical hole in the earbuds. So they still kind of let in nearly all of the ambient sound that's around you. And they're packed with these sensors that we need to know which way you're facing. We've worked quite closely with Sony over the last year or so on the integration with Soundscape. So although they were only released a couple of weeks ago, they're already supported in the app and good to go. So that's kind of the different types of headphones that can be used. And it really comes down to preference and how comfortable we feel having things in your ears.
Thank you for that, Fraser. So we'll try and play a little video here to give you some idea of what you will hear when you're using Soundscape. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to, because we're using Zoom and this technology, we're not going to get the full 3D spatial effect across Zoom, okay? But what you'll hear is our colleague Amos, and he's going to be going for a little walk with Emily. And he's just trying to make his way to a place called, I think it's called Local Burger. and it's in the town that they're walking in, and he's going to choose local burger from the Soundscape app. From the app, he's going to find it, search for it, and he's going to set a beacon on it, and then he's just going to walk towards it. So let's just see if you can get some sense as to what that sounds like when I play this video now. Okay. Here we go.
Hello and welcome. We are going to demonstrate how I use Soundscape. I have my friend Emily here with me.
Hi there.
And my guide dog Trevor. You're going to hear and experience Soundscape in the same way that I do through these headsets. So let's go.
Facing north along 101st Avenue South.
So Emily, where should we go?
I heard there's a place called Local Burger nearby. Would you like to try it?
Let's do it. I'll set a beacon to it. Now I can hear the beacon over in front of us, and to our right, that's where the local burger is.
Excellent. That beacon's really helpful as I can't see past these trees.
Fantastic. So let's go there.
All right.
Instead of step-by-step instructions, Soundscape lets me hear where the destination is, so I can make my way there.
Main Street.
We're coming up to an intersection here.
Goes right. Crossing.
Here's the crossing. Listen to the traffic. We're safe to cross?
All right, and it's safe to cross. Franz
Do it.
chocolates.
Hey, here's Franz chocolate
Continental.
over there.
Oh, perfect. We should set a marker there on our way back.
Now I can hear the beacon loud and clear on my right, so we'll turn right.
Facing north along
And
Main
here
Street.
it comes right in front of us, so we know we're walking straight towards it.
Forum Plaza.
On Main Street and straight
Faster
towards the
rear lane
beacon.
today.
We're going to start hearing it coming on our left as we get close to the local burger.
Joseph Jewelry. Gilbert's on Main.
And
Beacon close by. I can see the door.
here we are. Fantastic. Emily, thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening.
Cool. I'm not sure what you made of that, but some of the sounds you will have heard there. That in that video, Amos was using a beacon, and it had the very first beacon that we ever used, and it has like this clippity clop sound, clippity clop, and that's all you hear is this clippity clop, which kind of drives some people mad. And I'll come to this a little bit later. Okay, but when you have this clippity clop sound the whole time, but it's always coming from the direction of local burger in this case. But when he turned towards local burger, he heard ping, ping, which you may have heard in the video. And that sound indicates you are now facing local burger. And that's when Amos moved towards it. Okay, we'll come back to that a little bit later on, because there's some things we can say about beacons and sounds, which I'll get to afterwards. But I want to move on to another topic in Soundscape, another feature, which is called markers. Now, again, the word marker can mean a whole load of things, but a marker in Soundscape is basically a location or place that you have saved. So, for example, it could be a favorite place. It could be an important place. It might just be any place that just helps you with orientation. A lot of people create their first marker on their home. Okay, you can create a marker on your current location. So when they're at home, you can go into Soundscape and say, hey, I want to create a marker at my current location, which is my home, and they call it home. Now, what that means, all markers become are just a list of those important places and locations that are important to you. Okay, so a lot of people will have a marker for the bus stop they go to every day, or they might have a marker for the cafe they go to, or the bank, or any place that is just important or is just favorite to them. What else can I say about it? Yeah, and what you can do is you can set a beacon on these markers. So let's say you go for a trip into town and you want to come home. You could then look in your list of markers, find your home marker, set a beacon on it, and just follow your way back using the beacon on your home. So that feature's been around for a few years. Since then, we've kind of moved on. And now Soundscape has its own concept of routes. Okay, now again, a route, as most people know it, is how they experience it in Google Maps. It's just a turn-by-turn directions from where you are to wherever it is you want to go. But in Soundscape, a route is effectively a bunch of markers in a sequence, and you might start your route at a particular location and end at the bus stop in the middle of town. But you might have 5 or 6 markers in between as part of your route. So you might want to go on a specific direction, in a specific direction, to get between A and B, and that's your route. And the way it works is Soundscape will, when you start your route, Soundscape will set a beacon to the first marker on your route, and it will just take you there. So you use the beacon in the normal way, you'll hear the sound, you follow that sound, you'll get to the first marker of your route. And when you get there, Soundscape will say, you've arrived at the first marker, you're now going to the second marker, and the beacon suddenly shifts to the next marker in your route, and so on, until you finally arrive at your final destination. Now, we were inspired to create routes because a lot of our users were asking for this, but also lots of our mobility instructors were asking for this. They now use routes as part of their training for their clients. So a lot of mobility instructors are now taking their clients out into towns and creating routes. And what you can do with Soundscape and routes is you can share them. So a mobility instructor could create a route and then share it with you. Okay. Now there's an extra field which I didn't mention earlier. When you create a marker, there's like a little notes field, or we call it an annotation field, but you could add some little instructions. So you could have a marker which is a bench in a park, but your little note might be, make sure you sit to the right of the bench because the trees keep dropping apples on your head. Okay, I'm just being a bit ridiculous there, but you can understand, you can use these annotations or these little notes for any marker. They will be called out to you when you get there. And you'll hear them when you're also using your routes. So I want to share a video, again, starring Amos from our team and another member of our team, Melanie, and she's one of the engineers. And in this video, they're on the Microsoft campus in Redmond near Seattle, and Amos wants to create a route from the building that he works in to the building which has all the restaurants. And Melanie's going to go with him, and she's going to scout that route on his behalf and make a note of whatever is important to Amos on that journey. And then she's going to create a marker for all those important locations. And then she's going to join them up and create a route. And then Amos is going to do that journey on his own. Okay, so this video is that experience. Let's see how this sounds to you guys.
Outside building.
Hi, I'm Melanie and I'm an engineer on the Soundscape team. I'm here with Amos, and today we're going to show you how to develop a route in Soundscape. First, we're going to scout the route, then we're going to assemble it in Soundscape, and finally, we'll test the route and we'll adjust it as necessary.
Hi there, I'm Amos. I'm also on the Soundscape team. I work here in Building 99 on the Microsoft campus, and we'll develop the route to the commons, which is where the restaurants are and where we often get lunch. The route will take us down this path through the woods, and then we'll emerge next to the commons and find a restaurant, which will be our destination. So let's go.
Melanie guiding Amos.
Building 99 Fountain.
When we scout a route, we look for cues and landmarks that will serve as waypoints. We'll mark these waypoints in Soundscape, give them a name, and continue. I'll do it on my phone so that Amos can focus on the route.
Building 99 Parking Garage.
Okay, I can hear the garage is here on our right.
Approaching intersection. 150th Avenue, goes left. 150th Avenue, goes right.
Okay, let's create a point here at the top of this long stretch.
On a smartphone.
Good idea. And we'll also add one at this crosswalk.
Marker created. Crosswalk. Garden.
Walking on a path through the woods.
Okay, let's mark this fork in the path.
That sounds good.
Marker created.
Walking through an open pedestrian plaza.
Fountain.
All right.
Standing by the door.
Okay, let's leave our last marker here, and it'll be really helpful in this wide open space.
Marker created.
Excellent.
Sitting in a cafe, phones in hand.
Okay, so now let's assemble our route in Soundscape. I'll create a new route through the woods into the commons, and I'll add all of our markers that we just created. It's really easy to add them and to reorder them as you need to. This marker needs to move a little closer to the building, so I'll just nudge it a little bit. Okay, cool. Let me share the route with you.
Okay, I got it on my phone. I'm just going to open it with Soundscape.
Markers and routes.
And
Heading.
it looks really
Through the woods
good.
to
I can
commons.
see all the waypoints.
Through the woods to
Melanie
commons.
just
Heading.
sent me the route, but I could have just as well created it on my phone. The marker creation process is completely accessible even through VoiceOver. It's very easy to do. It really depends how you feel and how you want to go about it.
Okay, so let's try this. We're back at Building 99 and the start of our route.
With Soundscape, you navigate to a waypoint using an audio beacon. I'm going to start the route, and Soundscape has placed the audio beacon on my first waypoint. I can hear the waypoint in that direction. I'm using non-occluding bone conduction headphones because they allow me to hear the environment around me. You can use any type of headphones that you prefer, or you can just use the speaker on the phone. Okay, so let's head off.
Amos walking in front with his white cane.
75 feet. Fire hydrant is nearby. Beacon set on 150th, 480 feet away, 2 of 8. Garden. "150th is nearby. Beacon set on crosswalk, 45 feet away, 3 of 8. Crosswalk is nearby. Beacon set on steps to the woods, 95 feet away, 4 of 8. Fork in the woods is nearby. Beacon set on right to commons, 645 feet away, 6 of 8.
Okay.
Microsoft Commons
We're
is
getting
nearby.
close to the door here.
Yes.
Route complete.
And here we are. Got the door? Awesome, thank you.
Routes are a really structured navigation experience, which you can create and control. But if you want a less structured experience, you can always just place an audio beacon on anywhere you'd like to go. Soundscape is really easy to use and super flexible.
Soundscape helps me to learn a route much faster. I can build a mental map of the space, and my O&M and I, we enjoy building the route together. It's a lot of fun, it's very easy. The next time you go out, just put on Soundscape, enjoy the ambient experience that you hear. It will all make sense very quickly.
Thank you and enjoy using Soundscape.
Microsoft logo.
Thanks very much for listening to that. we always comment on that video. There's a bit of a musical bit that you hear at the end of the video. That is not part of Soundscape. It was more just to make that video a little bit more showy for a presentation where it was originally played. But I hope you got the essence of what Amos was trying to do and how he did it. And in that video, it showed him effectively walking that route independently, while Melanie walked behind him, and he successfully arrived at his destination. So that's something that we want a lot of people to play around with and give us their feedback, and we'll continue to develop that and make it as good as we possibly can in the future. I want to jump onto one quick screen here, which is you can configure your listening experience. I made a comment earlier on that there was one beacon that we used to have in Soundscape, just one. It was the clippity clop, which drove everybody mad with a loud pitched ping whenever you were facing your destination. We've received so much feedback from our users, and we now offer a whole variety of different beacon sounds now. Some are much softer, some are more high shrilled, depends on what you like. Okay, some break through the noise of busy environments better than others. So there's a whole range of beacons to play around with and to test and to try and work for you. There's also different voices. You can Soundscape. You've heard different voices calling out places nearby, but you can change that to male or female, Australian, American. You can choose what you like. The options are there. And also, finally, and also importantly, you can even adjust the volume of the beacon or the voice or other sounds in Soundscape. We found that different people had different hearing capabilities. Some heard the beacon more than others. So now we've added different volume controls so that you can adjust it so that it works for you. I'm now going to move on to the final section, really, where we want to talk about some of the other new and exciting things that are involved with Soundscape. And I'm going to hand over to Fraser to talk about that.
Yeah, so on this screen, we've got an image here on the left called Virtual Street Preview. We added this feature, it's probably about a year ago now. Those of you who have used Soundscape may have tried this out. What it essentially is it lets you like travel to anywhere in the world that you want to and hop around from intersection to intersection to really explore an area. While you're in this street preview mode, you can still use the My Location, Around Me, Ahead of Me buttons. Some people like to use this just to try a new area. Some people like to use it to kind of preview a route that they know they're going to take. Again, when I say route there, I don't mean a Soundscape route. I mean just the walk you're going to be taking. Something we'd love to do in the future is make this also work with Soundscape routes so you can preview it. That's hopefully in the future somewhere. Another feature we've been working on that, again, those of you who've used Soundscape may have noticed in the menu in the last couple of months, there's now an option called Recreational Activities. And what that is we've created an online tool that allows organizations to put together an event using Soundscape and using Soundscape's technology that's essentially like a scavenger hunt kind of style, but we've had a load of people use these in different ways, really. We've got some images up on the screen here that I'm going to talk you through. So the first one is two people in a kayak on a lake over in Washington in the US. We ran an event that was a scavenger hunt on this lake. Person with visual impairment was paired with a sighted user. The person with the visual impairment had Soundscape running, and they're the only person that knew where the points were they had to get to on the lake. The sighted person was purely there for safety and insurance reasons. And yeah, they had to go around and collect these virtual markers on the lake, and everyone loved it.
That's amazing. I love
We've
that.
also had some NGOs in America who are running an orienteering kind of event. They've got like a big parkland, and they just create virtual markers. So no one knows where the markers are, no one can see them. You have to use Soundscape to help get them. We've had one guy who created a route around a field and went around on his electric skateboard. And then we've also used this for a number of educational purposes. There's a school just outside St Albans near London that, as part of their year 6, kind of a bit of a fun project at the end of term, they created a walking tour around their village of various historical landmarks, and then demoed this to their parents. They kind of, when they get to the historical landmark, they hear a load of information that the school kids have researched. And yeah, trying to make that really inclusive walking tour of a village. So yeah, that's been quite interesting. And then on the next slide, we have another thing we've been working on, which is Skyview, which I think the best way to describe this is it's Stockholm's version of Big Ben. So they've got a big dome-shaped football stadium in Stockholm, where they've got these, essentially like a glass lift, like Willy Wonka style, on the side that goes up to the top, and you stay up there for about half an hour, and you have this panoramic view across Stockholm. And we've basically made a bespoke app using the Soundscape technology that really helps people to explore the skyline using this 3D audio technology. So you point the phone and it tells you what you're looking at, essentially, and you can select it, and you get all the immersive sounds of what it would sound like if you're actually there, and you get an audio description, a bit like a museum audio guide. This is just kind of another way that we've been exploring how the Soundscape technology can make experiences more accessible for everybody. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Oh, no, thanks for that, Fraser. I mean, yeah, I mean, basically what Fraser's alluding to there is Soundscape is now powering all sorts of different experiences other than what I started off talking about at the beginning of this presentation, where, you know, you can, in its most basic level, you can walk down the high street. But as Fraser just talked about, we've moved on from there. We've got people doing kayaking events, and now there are organizations that are using Soundscape technology as part of their tourist offerings. So it's proven to be quite powerful, and that's the sort of direction where we're continuing to explore. And the final slide I've got up here is that Soundscape is available in the US, it's in the UK, Canada, in French and English, Australia and Ireland, France, Italy, Sweden, Brazil, and Japan. Recently, it's just been released in Japan. And we plan to hit most of the rest of Europe with Soundscape within the year, hopefully. We've no idea of when, but we're getting ready for that too. It is important to say at this point, it only works on the iPhone. I know there's going to be a question. Does it work on the Android? The answer is it doesn't work on the Android. It only works on the iPhone as it stands today. So that's me heading off one question before you've even asked it. But we always get asked that question. And I'm going to finish off with one final slide, which is, if you want, oh, sorry, I actually just realized on my final slide, we do have a couple of new features coming out in the next version of Soundscape, which isn't out yet, but the setup experience when you launch Soundscape for the first time it's been completely revamped, and will hopefully do a much better job of explaining things like the beacon and how to listen to your sounds. And also we're playing around with voice control. So using Siri on the iPhone to remotely ask Soundscape to initiate some commands. So instead of pressing a button, I could ask Siri to do that for me. Okay, so that's stuff to look forward to. And I've got an email address up on the screen here. It's soundscape@microsoft.com. If you guys are really interested in becoming what we call an insider, someone who gets an early version of up and coming bits of Soundscape, let us know. We can add you to the list, and we'll invite you to play around with new features of Soundscape before we release them. So that's what we call an insider. We always value the feedback that we get from insiders. I'm conscious of time and I don't want to drone on, but we're now into the point where I think you can all be unmuted and ask us any questions you like. And I can probably stop sharing the screen as well.
So thank you so much, Stephen and Fraser. That was an absolutely impeccable presentation. Okay, so thank you so much, Stephen and Fraser. That was an absolutely impeccable presentation. I certainly really enjoyed it. Very informative and very innovative. I'm loving the fact that mobility officers are now implementing that into their route training. Some really exciting things in terms of the headsets and the tracking devices. So it's a real immersive experience. I can't wait to download it. I'm really looking forward to trying it out. So just want to open up the floor now to any questions that our service users have got.
I think everyone should be able to mute themselves now as well, if they want to. I was just going to say, I've been using Soundscape for a while. I've learned quite a few new things there today, especially the route planning as well, which I think is really, really good. I am going to ask. I know you mentioned obviously it only works on Apple at the moment. Are there any plans for Android in the future?
Yeah, it's on our radar. We just don't know when, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
and that's probably as much as I can say at this point.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
We know there's a whole community of Android users out there, and in some countries, Androids are used more than iPhones. So it's something that we will address, but we don't know when.
Yeah.
And can I just ask, is there plans for Soundscape to move into the wearable device field, maybe implemented into a mobility cane, a badge or glasses, or are you sort of sticking to the app?
Great question.
That's a great question.
Yeah, I think at the moment, because the amount of processing that needs to happen for all the spatial audio and everything, I think I don't know huge amounts about the other tech. I know like WeWalk make that cane and things like that, but I think with the amount of processing that needs to be done, there always in the near future need to be a phone to be able to do that. Whether there is some integration that can be done, possibly, but yeah, I'm not really sure at the moment.
I think it's probably fair to say that I wouldn't say that that's. I think what we're one of our big goals is to see whether we can make Soundscape available to all people, as well as those who are just visually impaired or blind. I think the focus will always be. Sorry, was there a question there?
I think it was a bit of interference.
Yeah, I think it will continue to be an app in terms of wearables. I mean, it might go to like things like watches.
Yeah.
You might see more hearing devices with remote control capabilities in them. Fraser mentioned the Sony Link Buds, which are different to some of the other headphones that you've got out there. They do have a hole in them, so they don't block your ears. But they do innovative things like you can control that headphone by just tapping your cheek. Okay, yeah, I know. Well. So I expect we'll see things like that rather than Soundscape going into a cane or Soundscape going into other wearable devices. I think we're also interested in the indoor experience. How can Soundscape go into train stations? How can Soundscape work in supermarkets. We're exploring all sorts of areas where Soundscape could add value to. At the moment, it's pretty much an outdoor experience. We did do a lot of testing for about a year at King's Cross. It was King's Cross, yeah, King's Cross Station in London. But the technology and the infrastructure isn't quite there yet. So we'll wait and see what happens over the long term on that.
Yeah, I love using it.
You know, it needs Soundscape. It's a big public, you know, like airports, train stations. It's not some shops up to a point, but it's, you know, it's big, huge places, isn't it, really, rather than the little tiny shop.
Oh yeah, I mean, we would love to see it work at airports and train stations and superstores. But you know, the technology isn't quite there yet. It's not Soundscape's problem. It's the technology that Soundscape would need to connect to.
Yeah.
But things like transport, common question. It's about as common as, are you going to build it for Android? Making Soundscape work on train journeys or trams. What's the next station? Having that sort of information integrated into Soundscape is something people ask us for, and we're looking at all these different things, but not sure what will come first and when.
It's a good point. That's a good point, because I tend to use Soundscape whilst using other apps at the same time. So I might use the WeWalk app, or I might use like Google Maps at the same time. But I'm using Soundscape as well because I really find the audio beacon a really great feature that other apps don't, you know, they don't offer. So I like having that there, you know, in the background, giving me that, you know, constant information about how far away I am. That's what I love Soundscape for.
We once met a lady who was quite skeptical about Soundscape and was a big Google Maps user, and she came to visit us in Reading, and she put them on side by side, and we gave her the mission to go and find this place in Reading that she'd never been to. She had Google telling her which way to go, and she had Soundscape with the beacon. And her feedback afterwards was, it was almost like we'd won her over. It was all Google Maps said is turn left, turn right, and it went quiet in between. But while it was quiet, Soundscape was telling her what was there, what was there, what was to her right, what was to her left, the road intersections that are coming up to the left, blah, 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 blah. And she said, wow, suddenly the journey wasn't just a boring turn left, turn right, get me to my destination. It was also telling me about what was in my environment. And things that she went back and tried it in her hometown, and suddenly she was telling us things like, I didn't even know this stuff was around me. And that's the impact it had. We've had different kinds of feedback that have been inspiring for us to listen to, that have made it worth the while for us, but across the world. So
I think it's great, because I find that if I'm being guided by my dad, for example, he won't tell me about certain things because he knows that'll pique my interest, and then I'll spend loads of time and money at that place. So now it'll be really good to say, excuse me.
So download Soundscape, don't tell him, and then you'll have a superpower.
Fabulous.
It's true. It's kind of brings that like sighted world, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, brings it in an audible way. Because I'm the same. You know, you go somewhere where you've never been before, and you know, if you come from A to B, you can there's a coffee shop there. I'll get a coffee on the way. You know, whereas I'd just walk past that coffee shop because I didn't know it was there.
Yeah.
You know, it's stuff like that that people take for granted. You know.
I'd like to make this offer. If there's anyone on this group listening that wants to give it a go, don't necessarily have the confidence, are struggling or whatever, just reach out to us through you, Andrew, if they can, and we'd happily set up a Zoom call, talk things through, and see if we can help out. Okay, we do that with other people in other groups, and A, you're giving us valuable feedback, and B, hopefully we can point in the right direction, because we want to learn and make it better at the end of the day. So that offer's there.
Brilliant.
No, really
And I don't say that lightly. I mean, we genuinely would. That is an offer. So go ahead and download the app. And if you think I don't understand how this works, you call us and let us know, and we'll talk about it, and we'll see if we can help.
Excellent.
That's amazing. Does anyone
Does it actually plug into Google Maps in the sense that when you said, oh, it was telling somebody turn left, then turn right, but then you were filling in all the shops?
You can use Google Maps and Soundscape at the same time.
It's not kind of, it doesn't.
I thought you made a software call into Google. No,
they're just literally, both apps just provide audio instructions, but yeah, sorry, Fraser, you were going to say something.
I was going to say they're not integrated. They can just both be used at the same time.
Yeah, it's a bit like Amos, who you heard in the videos. He will travel from home to the office, but he'll listen to podcasts, and he will be listening to Soundscape at the same time. Okay, so it's horses for courses. It's up to you how you want to use it, and what you find distracting, what you don't find distracting. Some people cope with it quite well. Some people would rather just listen to one. Okay, so it's totally up to you, but you can do it.
Perfect. Amazing. Anyone else got any questions or comments to make?
I've just got a quick suggestion. I think a range of headsets, like you said earlier, because one of the problems you've got outside, and Andrew's always said this, you've got to be aware of what's going on, aren't you, when you're out in public? Mm-hmm. Everybody has, whether you can see it or not.
Yeah.
Oh, we totally agree. Totally agree.
You don't want to go around, and I've seen youngsters do this, go around with their big headphones on, like you've got. I mean, that's all right now, but out in the streets, listening to their Walkman or whatever MP3s on their phone, and then what do? They bump into you, don't they? They can see all right.
Yeah, that's what we call the heads up versus the heads down experience.
You are right. The Sony, is it the Sony ones look quite good that you were talking about on the video? Those headphones look quite good. I purposely went out and bought an old pair of Bose frames, the first generation, because they're the ones that work with Soundscape. They're the sunglasses with the built-in speakers. So if you go and buy a pair of those, you've got to buy the original generation, not the new ones, because Bose did away with their AR, their audio reality. So you've got to buy the old ones, and they work really well. And then I also bought the AirPods Pro as well, and they've got that they call it now audio what's it called? It's kind of 3D audio built into the headphones, so as you turn your head, it knows what position your head's in, so that feeds the Soundscape app. So with the Bose frames and the AirPods Pro, you can just put your phone in your pocket and forget about your phone, and Soundscape knows which direction you're facing. And of course, those headphones have, they have nice kind of, you can hear environment around you at the same time as listening to what's coming through the headphones as well. So you can't have enough headphones in your life. I like lots of headphones, but you see, I couldn't deal with wearing a pair of sunglasses and my AirPods Pros at the same time. So I like the fact they've got the Bose frames; they work really well, and then you've got the AirPods Pro as well, and of course Soundscape supports those. And so does the Soundscape support these new Sony ones as well then?
Yeah,
that's
they
right.
do.
Yeah.
So in terms of, what you've just been describing there are the head tracking headsets.
Right. Yeah, head tracking.
It's the Bose, the AirPods, and the Sony Link Buds are the three devices. But you know, we've got a lot of people who use just good old-fashioned aftershocks, the bone conduction headsets.
Oh,
yeah, and they work brilliantly because you get to hear everything else around you, but they won't give you the head tracking features, but they still give you a good soundscape experience. So, I mean, we could talk a little bit more technical if you want, but if you're walking, for example, and you put the phone in your pocket and you just have the good old-fashioned bone conduction ones, we know which way you're walking. So it doesn't really matter which way you're facing anymore. We know which way you're walking. So just based on that direction, everything you hear will be called out based on the direction you're walking in. So you can still put it in your pocket and keep your phone safe. So that works quite well.
I think what I quite like about it is that
I use aftershocks, and I put my phone in my pocket, and I moved house after I lost my sight. So I know, I'm so familiar with where I live. It's like I can see it. It's amazing the difference it's made to me. Because when I first moved here, I thought, oh, this is awful. I don't really know where I am. But using Soundscape now, I feel as if I can see it. It feels as if it's visual, as if it's there. And that's because it's telling me all the time the different shops, the roads, the intersections, the car parks, parking lots, whatever. It's absolutely wonderful. It really helped me live.
I mean, it's literally lighting up your world with sound.
Yeah, it is.
So and that's one of our taglines. So and it's so great to hear that it actually does that. And so that's nice to hear.
Yeah, it's consistent, isn't it? It's a consistent experience that's makes it then starts to make your journey familiar for you as well. You know, which is important to us all when we're on a journey, isn't it? Which I think is important.
Really lovely to hear Mosey's sort of success story with it as well. Really
There's a case study that there was ever one.
Not used the routes yet. I must do that. I must try.
Yeah, I mean, Fraser and I, being the testers for the team, will be the first to say the app's not perfect, but no app is. But we know where it's flawed and where work needs to be done. So any feedback you give us, we take it on board. Fraser spends half his life collecting this feedback and working on it and making sure that the engineers get to hear this feedback. In fact, we've got a feedback meeting coming up.
So, once a week, we discuss all the feedback we've had over the week. So if you email soundscape@microsoft.com, then we read every email and discuss every one with the team. So,
and by the way, just to make it easier, in the Soundscape menu, there is something called feedback.
Yes.
You tap on that, and that feedback will land on Fraser's desk. Okay, so yeah, just feel encouraged to use it. And as I said, Andrew, if you want a follow-up, or if you want people to test this out and discuss it with us, have another session, the offer's there. Just reach out, and we'll be more than happy to hear what people's experiences have been.
Yeah, some of my sighted friends think Soundscape is wonderful.
Well, that's good to hear too, because we want it to be for everybody, not just. I mean, you guys at the moment have got the superpower with this app, so I mean, you can see through buildings. You can actually you can be walking down a road and you'll hear stuff called out in the other street. And no one with sight would have a clue.
Yeah.
So
I love the idea of the sort of scavenger hunt. That sounds fantastic.
Oh, that's great. I mean, Fraser and I have had good fun testing, and I've created loads of scavenger hunts for him, and I've just watched him wander around in all sorts of directions. But he always gets there.
especially in a kayak, even better still.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite amazing.
Don't get them wet. Don't get wet.
I don't get wet in a kayak. I never get wet in a kayak. Ask James at Galloway's.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Stephen and Fraser, for your time. For your
It's been our
effort.
pleasure.
It's been really, really nice. And thanks everyone for joining today.
Fantastic. Have a great
Thanks
week.
for having
And
us.
any problems, just give us a shout. Just your next task before dinner is to download the app.
Thanks, guys.